Okay. So now let's start with the system hacking part. We are done with the simple basic introduction. We are done with basic cryptography. We are done with basic information gathering techniques. We are done with network scanning and enumeration as well.
Yeah.
Right? In enumeration, the most important thing was the methodology. What things have to keep it in mind while you are testing any services. Right? The most important thing was your methodology. Right? And I hope you all were able to understand the methodology. Right? And after this enumeration module, we have the system hacking. So let's start with system hacking part. So we will start with the notes one by one. So in system hacking module, we were focused on these three phases. If you remember the five phases of hacking, the first phase was information gathering. We are done with the information gathering part. The second phase was your scanning. We are also done with scanning phase. The third phase was gaining access, which we will cover in this specific module, system hacking. The fourth phase was your maintaining access, which we will cover in our next module, malware and threats. And after that, the last phase, covering tracks, is also covered in this module, system hacking. Right? So in this class, not in today's class, in this session, in this module number 6, system hacking, we will cover two phases of hacking. First one was your simple gaining access part through, like, you can just how to crack the password for Windows operating systems, how to create some applications through which you can hack or you can get access to any Windows operating system. And the last thing was how to take advantage of any weakness on the operating system itself. Or I'll explain one more thing here was your buffer overflow. Right? I'll explain, or you can say we will try to exploit these four methods in this particular session. First one is password cracking. Second one is exploitation of services or malicious applications out there. After that, we will take advantage for for the applications installed. Let's say you are running a VLC media player, right? And if there is a weakness in VLC media player, how I can take advantage of that running application, right? That was the part of basic buffer overflow. So I will explain the buffer overflow as well, right? So I think we should start with the password cracking first. And before starting with password cracking, first we need to know what are the basic authentication techniques a developer use to authenticate a user. Most common authentication technique which a developer use is the authentication based on username and password, where we provide our username and our password to get access to some restricted resources. It could be a computer system, it could be some sensitive database, it could be a sensitive file, sensitive folder, it could be anything. But those resources are restricted from the access of public. They were restricted from the public access, right? They were only accessed to the authorized person. And for authorization, we have to authorize, we have to authenticate ourselves with the help of username and password. When we authenticate ourselves, only then we can access those resources, right? Then the second most common method which a developer, or we can say which we generally use to authenticate a user, that was your authentication based on biometric sensors, where generally we use our fingerprint sensors or our retina scans to verify our identity, that we are part of the authorized people. We were also an authorized person, right? To verify that thing, we use our biometric scanners, right? Or biometric scans, you can say, like fingerprint, biometric, or retina scans, or eye scans, you can say. Facial recognition is also considered under your biometric scans. One more thing. After that biometric scanners, you can also restrict the user to access some specific resources based on their physical location, based on their devices, and based on their IP addresses as well. You can restrict the user based on these three common things as well, like their location. If they were from a specific country, only then they can access the data. if they were requesting from a specific IP address, only then they can access the data, right? Or like if they were trying to access the resource with the specific device, only then they can access the data. So we can apply these kind of filters as well, right? So for the specific device, we can apply the filter on behalf on based on their MAC address, right? We can apply the filter for their MAC addresses. If I talk about the location, we can restrict the user for some geographical location. Like I don't want to allow users from China or from Russia or from Asia as well, right? At that time, you can restrict a specific geographical location, or you can restrict some specific public IPs as well, right? Other than this, we have some basic characteristics for a secure password. We all know these basic characteristics, like always use uppercase, lowercase letters, always use a combination of special characters, always use numbers, always use lengthy password. But generally, what we do when we set a pin, when we set pins for our mobile devices or for our systems as well, we generally set pins for 4 digit. We generally set 4 digit pin, but it's not limited to 4 digit pin. You can go up to 8 characters, 16 characters as well. The pin length is not limited to 4 digits. You can just extend, you can just increase the size of the pins, right? You can just go with like number 8 times 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can increase the number of possible combinations. And if you are using a lengthy pin or lengthy password, at that time there are more possible combinations of character. Let's say if I show you a simple picture, just go with brute force speed, its speed, and just go with images. Here we have a picture. Just go with that picture. This will give you a better hint, like what password length. Let's say if you're using 10 character password, right? And if you are only using numeric values, then it can be easily cracked within few seconds, right? Or within few milliseconds, you can say. Not few seconds, within few milliseconds. If you are using a 10 character numeric password, right? After that, but if you are using a lowercase or a uppercase passwords, a combination of both, a lowercase or uppercase, but only alphabets. At that time, if your password length is 10 characters, then it will take around like 3 days to try all the possible combinations for those passwords. But if you are using numbers and lowercase characters with uppercase characters, at that time it will take around like 15 days to crack all the to try all the possible combinations for those characters, right? But if you are using numeric, some alphabets, and some special characters as well, at that time it will take around like 330 years to try all the possible combinations. And if you are using 15 characters, 16 characters, even for numeric, it will take around like 4 hours to try all the possible combinations. It will take around like 143 million years to try all the possible combinations for lowercase and uppercase letter. I'm not gonna live 143 million years. If you are living for 143 million years, then you can brute force. Then you can try all the possible combinations, right? So the point is always use lengthy pins, lengthy passwords, so that we can increase the more and more number of possible combinations, right? More number of possible combinations means it's very, very hard for an attacker to crack your password, right? And always use a combination of all these things: lowercase, uppercase letters, special characters, numbers, and always use lengthy pins or lengthy password, or you can use passphrases as well. Like you can use some sentences like, this is my password for Gmail, like I'm updating my password for Gmail in 2020, I'm updating my password for Facebook in 2020. You can use these kind of sentences as your password, right? They were easy to remember, and just because of their length they were hard to crack. or you can just go with uppercase and lowercase combinations as well to make the password more and more complex. Other than this, let's start with some password based attacks. First one was your non electronic attack, where we don't need any kind of electronic device to fetch the password or to extract the password. The first one was your shoulder surfing. When you are spying on someone, when you are spying on someone, let's say you are standing behind someone, or you are sitting next to someone in a metro, in a train, let's say, right? And let's say you and me are sitting in you and me are sitting next to each other in a train, right? And I'm trying to enter some password. I'm trying to log in my Facebook account. And at that time, if you are peeking inside my mobile screen, if you're spying on my mobile screen, that was the part of shoulder surfing. When you are spying on someone's device to get their sensitive information, like whom they were sending emails, what messages they were conveying with each other, what username passwords they were entering, if, right? This kind of sensitive information, if you are trying to extract just by looking into someone's device, this was the part of shoulder surfing. After shoulder surfing, we have the dumpster diving. In dumpster diving, generally we were focused on extracting some relevant information about the target from their trash, from their dumps, right? Like their sticky notes could be there, their electricity bill, their simple bills, their food orders, these kind of things, right? But always, because not always, most of the time, these things can help a attacker. These things can help a attacker to pursue any other more serious, more critical attack, right? This kind of basic information can help a attacker. Other than this, we have one more term, we call it eavesdropping. Eavesdropping is a common term when you are trying to listen to someone's conversation. Let's say you and me were talking about some projects, right? We were sitting in a park. You and me are talking about a project, right? And let's say someone was sitting like 10 feet away from me. Even then, if he is able or if he was more focused on our conversation, that was the part of eavesdropping. You are trying to uh, listen to someone's conversation, is the part of eavesdropping. After eavesdropping, we have the wishing part. Wishing is similar to the phishing, fake emails we generally send with the phishing page. But wishing is similar to someone, like when you call someone without any prior notification, right? You are calling someone, trying to spoof, you are trying to fool someone over a phone call. That was the part of wishing, right? After this non-electronic attacks, we have some active online attacks as well, and these kind of attacks are generally known as the brute force. Brute force was there. Again, we all know what is brute force. Trying all the possible combinations is known as brute force. But if you are trying some meaningful words only, at that time we call it dictionary or word list attack, right? Other than this, we have one more term, we call it hash injection. Hash injections are performed when you have access to the system. Let's say you have access to system with through your like some RDB service, through some SSH connection, through some FTP connections. But let's say you have access to the system, right? When you have access to the system, what you can do in Linux, all my passwords are stored in salted hashes in the shadow file, right? What I can do, I can just download that shadow file and I can try to extract the actual password from those hashes, right? I can try to crack the password. I can try to crack those hashes. Same thing I can do for my Windows as well. But in Windows, all your passwords are stored in normal hash and in the SAM file, right? Again, SAM stands for Security Account Manager, which was stored inside this directory. C, Windows System 32 configuration and the SAM,
Yeah,
right?
excuse me,
Yes, yes,
Shidar. I remember this Sam when I'm using a CD to boot from called Heron CD to reset password of the administrator to break the
Yeah.
password. I think this is the same, right?
No, this is not the same. This is not the same. When
Uh,
you are using a bootable pen drive to reset the password, that's a different thing. In
yeah.
hash injection, what
Mm.
you will do, you will just download this SAM file. You will download the SAM file, you will dump the data from the SAM file, and then you try to crack the hashes which were available inside that SAM file. I'll
Oh,
show you. Using bootable pen drive and modifying the password is a different thing. But here
okay.
you are trying to crack the hashes.
Right. What
Bootable
about,
pen drive
excuse me, what
contains the
about these
password.
people? What about these people? They are hacking accounts like Hotmail account. And one day he come, for example, guy, oh, he's hacking the Hotmail account and he reset password. He depending on this and these module and these ways or what? Or something else?
No, these kind of attacks were different. They were generally like they were creating some phishing emails or some phishing pages, right?
Okay.
They will send you some emails or they will send you some
Yeah,
links
fake
through your
email.
text, yeah, through your simple SMS, right? And if you visit those links, visit those documents, at that time they will redirect you to a specific customized or you can say malformed web page developed by the attacker itself,
Yeah.
which will ask you for your username and password. And when you enter the username and password, those credentials, your username and password will goes to the attacker and you will be redirected to the actual official website
Excellent.
or any other page. That's a different thing that we will cover in our social engineering module.
Yeah.
That's module number 9 if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will cover these things as well in our upcoming sessions. But that's a
Oh,
different attack.
yeah.
So in the hash injections, we were just more focused on just down or on dumping the data for these SAM files or the shadow files and then try to crack the hashes for those files. I'll show you the practicals when we perform it, how to dump the SAM file and how to crack the hashes. I will show you the practicals as well. But now
Yeah.
just go with the theoretical here. Other than this, if you go with the passive online attacks as well, in passive online attacks, generally you are focused on analyzing the traffic, on the network traffic, like which websites you are visiting, what credentials you are entering, and if you are visiting some insecure websites and if you are transmitting your data through insecure connections, through your insecure HTTP connections, FTP connections, some telnet connections, at that time, anyone, even anyone, can easily capture your network traffic and extract those passwords, extract your username and password easily, right? That was the part of passive online attacks. Again, wire sniffing is just one of them. Second thing was MIT a man in the middle attack where all the traffic goes through the attacker's machine and attacker can analyze, can modify and do whatever he wants with that traffic, right? Some tools which you can use for the MIT attack was your Zerosploit is one of them. Ettercap is another tool. Bettercap is another tool. We have some other tools as well. And Beef exploitation framework, sorry, the browser exploitation framework Beef is again one of them. But with the Beef, you are focused on hijacking the browser's tab. You can take over the browser tab. Let's say I have multiple browser tabs here, right? With the Beef accesses, I can take control for this specific browser tab. That was the part of Beef accesses. It doesn't matter what browser you are using, what machine you are using. It's independent of these things. But the point is, you can take over, you can take control for these browser tabs, right? But only for specific browser tab, not for everyone, for a specific browser tab. Other than this, you can also try some default passwords if you are focused on password cracking. You can start with some default password. Let's say you are trying to crack password for some machines like routers, some cameras, some printers, some like any local devices, right? At that time, you can also try the default passwords like admin user, admin1234, simple password, capital P with password. You can try different values within different default passwords. And here we have some links which you can go with and identify the password, identify the default password for different devices from different manufacturers, right? Other than this default password, we have some password guessing part as well. If you are using very strong passwords, which can be easily guessed, like this one. If I'm using my password as 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8, this password, like this kind of password for a Wi-Fi, is so strong, like no one can guess it. If you are using this kind of passwords, you're great then, right? So don't use passwords like these one. Always use a secure password. Don't use a password which can be guessed by anyone easily. Don't use guessable passwords.
Yeah.
Don't use, right? Always use a secure password.
Yeah.
Other than this, you can use a USB drive to crack passwords for almost all the machines, or with the USB drives, you can even get data without cracking the password as well. And for that, all you need is a bootable pen drive, and that's all. And that's all. You can access the data. You can access the data without cracking the password from the victim's machine. After that, we have some mitigations as well, like how you can prevent these attacks. First one was like change default password. Second one was do not store password in application. If that application get compromised, let's say you are storing your password on some Firefox browser, right? If the database for the Firefox get compromised, then all your passwords are gone.
Ooh.
All your passwords for different accounts are gone because of the Firefox, and you cannot do anything. So don't store your passwords anywhere in any application, right? For your sensitive account specifically. Other than this, don't use guessable passwords. One more thing. This part, always use store password in sorted hashes. This part is for the server side. Let's say when we just create our account, we provide our usernames and password. Let's say I was using password as like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 0. Suppose this is my password. What my server will do, my server will store the hash value for that password, but it will not create the hash value directly. What it will do, it will first add some characters at the beginning or at the ending. Again, some of the servers add the characters at the beginning, some of them add the characters at the ending, or some of them add the characters at both the places. Like if I'm adding some characters like A B C D at the beginning, and at the ending I will add W, X, Y, and Z, right? After adding these characters, then my server will calculate the hash value, hash, and that hash will be stored inside the database. These characters, which were added at the beginning or at the end of the password, are known as salt. Those characters are known as the salt, right? And the output for this complete string value is known as salted hash, right? All the servers store your password in form of salted hash. The point is, even if you are using even if you are using a simple password like 1 2 9 and then 0, even then your attacker, or if let's say even then, if your attacker get access to the database, because my database store your hashed value, because my database store the salted hashed value for your password, right? My attacker needs to crack those salted hash. And for cracking, they generally compare the two hash values, right? One was one hash value which was received by the hacked database, second hash value which was calculated by the attacker himself. He will calculate the hash value for different characters. Let's say he will calculate the hash value for 1, then 1 1, then 1 2, then 1 3, then 1 4, then 15, then 16, 17, 18, so on, up to 999999999, right? He have, or the attacker has to calculate hash value for all the characters, and then he will compare all the hash value with the hash he got from the database, right? If both the hash values are equal, even only then he got your password. And if I talk about the salted hash, their server, or you can say the server generally adds some lengthy value and some random characters like these one, which make the password more complex, or the salt will be more unique to be cracked by any attacker, right? Even if their database got leaked to the data to the attackers cannot extract the password from that database because the passwords are stored in salted hash. And because of these salts, your password become more complex, right? More secure, you can say. Other than these salted hashes, you can just change your password on monthly or weekly or like quarterly or half yearly basis, but again, change your password periodically, right? Change your password regularly. After that, use passwords, use different passwords for different services. Don't use same password for same services. Let's say you are configuring your router and you are configuring different services as well. Like FTP service was running on your router, some SSH service was running on your router, some SMTP service was also running on your router, some SNMP service was also running on your router. At that time, what generally admin do? Admin configure the same set of password for almost save the services, right?
Yeah.
But don't use the same password for different services. Always use different passwords for different services, so that even if one service get compromised, even if one insecure service, or even if one less uh, complex, not complex, like I'm missing the term. Uh, Even if a normal service like FTP get compromised, right? Your user or your attacker has access to some resources, some part of the server, not every part of the server or the router, right? He doesn't have the full control over the router. He can only access the files, right? So don't use same password for same services. If you have different password for FTP and different password for SSH, if your FTP password is if your FTP password get compromised, then account will be secure, right? So don't use the same passwords for different services. Other than this, configure policies for incorrect password attempts. Let's say if you want to limit like how many number of attempts will be allowed to any user. Like he can go with like two incorrect attempts, five incorrect attempts, or seven incorrect attempts. After those many attempts, his account will be locked, or his IP will be locked, or he will be locked for like 1 hour, 2 hours. For these kind of steps, just to prevent the brute force, just to prevent the brute force, right? We can just limit the user to some limited password attempts, right? Or some limited login attempts as well. Other than this password attacks, we have one more term we call it privilege escalation. Privilege escalation is not something different. It's like you are getting access to someone other's account. Let's say in this normal Linux operating systems, let's say we have three accounts. Let's say we have three accounts. One of them was your admin account, right? Other one was account for other user. Let's call it him as Ram, right? And let's say we have one more user out there, and his name was, let's go with again any name. Let's go with Shyam this time, right? We have three users out there. First one was your administrator, who have the complete access over the machine, over the resources, right? Then we have the Ram and Shyam, who are two employees working in the same department, working at the same position, right? It means they have the same level of privileges, or they have same level of permissions, right? They have same access to all the resources, right? The access Ram can access the resources, RAM can access, Shyam can also access those resources, right? For the files which are accessible to the RAM can also be accessed by the Shyam, but they have their own files as well. They have their own files as well. Now, if I talk about simple horizontal privilege escalation, in horizontal, let's say in my system, I logged in as a user RAM, right? I will log in as the user RAM, right? But just by executing some program, just by executing some commands on the terminal, if I'm able, if I have access or if I got access to Shyam account, if I got access to another account, but with the same permission, I got access to other users account, but with the same permission, right? That user has the same level of permission like me, right? That was the part of horizontal privilege escalation. It means you are migrating from your accounts to some other accounts, but on the same level of privileges, the same level of permissions, right? Then the second one was your vertical privilege escalation, in which again the concept was same, but here you are migrating from a lower privileged account to a higher privileged account, right? You are switching from RAM to admin. That was the part of vertical privilege escalation. The point is, if you are doing these things, if you are migrating from RAM to Shyam without proper steps, or without any permissions, without validating yourself, without authenticating yourself, that was the part of privilege escalation, right? You need to bypass some authentication, some permission part. Only then it will be considered as privilege escalation, when you are able to crack the authentication part, right? Other than this privilege escalation, we have one more term, we call it keyloggers. These were some basic softwares which will record all your keys you are pressing through your physical keyboard. All your keystrokes from your physical keyboards will be recorded by these kind of software called them keyloggers, right? Just to prevent from these keyloggers, you can use some anti-keylogger softwares, or you can just go with some yourself. You can just use some countermeasure by yourself, like don't click on the output URLs, use on-screen keyboards. You can also use on-screen keyboards which are available because some of the websites as well offer your on-screen keyboard facility, right? So you can access these kind of on-screen keyboards from the websites as well. Like if I go with the bank website, just go with Central Bank because I have an account of bank, so I know. Like you can use this kind of on-screen keyboard to enter your credentials there. If I go with the password, I can use this on-screen keyboard to enter my password there, right? So you can prevent this kind of key blockers with your on-screen keyboards as well. Other than this, you can monitor your applications. You can monitor the installed application, monitor installed applications, right? You can install which application is installed. You can analyze which application is installed in your device. Just go to the control panel and go with the programs and feature. And if you get any application, if you are if you see like this one, Google from GitHub or these applications were not installed by me, or this is an unwanted application, then you can easily remove, right? Other than this, you can just configure some host-based IDS or firewalls which can prevent from the key logs which are recorded in your systems from being transmitted to the attacker, right? You can prevent those key logs, those key records to be sent to the attackers. You can prevent these things. Other than this, you can just scan the files before installation, and you can just use your antivirus, you can use your Windows Defender, or you can just visit this kind of website like Virus Total. Again, these websites are not different. They will take help from different softwares, different antiviruses, or different background. If I just go with Open VPN application out there, They will calculate the hash for the certificate and then verify that application is valid or not. Right? They will use some and they will use some different antiviruses out there. Like AdBlocker, Avast was there, Baidu was there, CLC, Signet was there, Fortinet was there, F-Secure was there. Different antiviruses were used by this platform, virus dot. Right? Other than this, we have one more kind of malware. We call it adwares. So adwares are basic software which were focused on just taking you to the advertisements. They will just display the advertisements on your screen, and they will sometimes force you to click on those links and visit the websites, right? So that the developer or the company who developed the adware can generate more revenue just by showing you more and more ads. So these kind of softwares which display ads on your screen are generally known as adwares, right? Other than this, we have one more kind of malware we call spyware. Spyware, you can say, they were the advanced version, they were the modified version for the keyloggers. The spywares can record your keystrokes, they can record your screen, they can record your mic, they can record your camera as well. Right? So they can record like all the things. They can record your mic, your camera, your screen, and your keystrokes as well. Right? So these kind of softwares are known as spywares. Other than this, we have the two types of basic file systems here. One of them, or sorry, two of them are for the Windows operating systems like NTFS or FAT. Both were generally used in Windows operating system. And the third one was your TXT, which was used by your Linux operating system. The point here is your file structure, your file systems for Windows are supported in the Linux operating system. Let's say you have two laptops. You don't have a laptop, let's say you have one laptop and you have one computer system, right? Inside computer system, you are running Linux operating system, or you are inside the computer, you are using Kali Linux, right? And in your laptop, let's say you have an office laptop, and in that you are using some Windows operating system, right? If you just plug out the hard drive from that laptop and plug it in your computer system, at that time you can just go to, you can fetch some data, you can access the data from that hard drive in your computer system because Windows file systems are supported by the Linux operating system. Now, let's say if you plug out the hard drive from your computer system and attach it with the laptop, laptop was running Windows operating system, but that hard drive from the computer system was formatted with the Linux operating system. The computer was running Linux operating system, right? At that time, you cannot access the data from that computer's hard drive because file systems for the Linux are not supported in Windows, right? So either you need to format the hard drive or you need to plug the hard drive from your laptop into your computer system. Now, the main point was all the not all most of the file systems for the Windows are supportive in Linux, but very few, very few file systems for the Linux are supportive in Windows. Right? After that, we have a technique we call steganography. Steganography is just the technique for hiding sensitive information behind a file, behind any media file again. But generally, we hide our sensitive data behind a media file. We hide our sensitive data behind a media file. The process of hiding data is known as steganography, right? You can hide the data behind any image file, any video file, any audio file as well. Other than this, I hope it's clear. We are the basic simple theoretical portions about your system